Good Sunday morning and welcome to Inside Tennessee. I'm one of your moderators, John Becker. We'll get to John North and our guest in panel momentarily. We are talking about something you have a chance to vote on come November, a sales tax increase in the city of Knoxville. Will you vote up or down? That's the question we put to council candidates. Here is 10 News reporter Ellis Rold to lead our coverage this morning.
A proposed sales tax increase would up Knoxville's local option sales tax by half a cent. Mayor India Kincannon says the change could create another $47 million in revenue each year, which would go to things like sidewalks, parks, and affordable housing. We asked city council candidates their thoughts on the possible increase, and some are concerned.
They keep just rubber stamping just bad policy, and if you just not do bad things, like spend unwisely and tax for no reason, you don't need this kind of, revenue. 10
News reached out to all 18 candidates. Of those, 15 got back to us. 10 opposed the increase, citing concerns with transparency.
There are no guarantees in this. The only guarantee is that we will be taxed, and I don't want to see any additional tax revenue or tax burden on working families until City Council, the people's representatives, have more control over the budget.
4 candidates say they're listening to what voters decide in November, or will hold the mayor's spending accountable if it passes. One candidate, Charles Van Morgan, says he's for it, but only if property taxes are lowered. But others, like Jeff Tallman, say a tax like this shouldn't be raised.
I am an emphatic no for the increase in the sales tax. We have too many of our fellow citizens who are already on the edge in terms of their ability to afford life, food, housing. This has the effect of pushing them further onto the margin.
The change will be on the ballot in November and in the hands of voters.
Ellis Rold reporting. We're back with my colleague John North and our guest and panel. Our guest this morning, a man who knows how to pass a sales tax increase in the city of Knoxville, longtime mayor and former ambassador Victor Ashe. Nice to have you with us, sir.
Good to be here.
Let me introduce our panel. We'll get to questions. Eddie Smith is a Republican. He represented us in the State House for several years. Nice to have you.
Good morning, John. And John, good to see you, Victor.
Yes, indeed. And Don Bosch, everyone knows you're a Democrat and run your own law firm.
One of the last ones left in town. Happy to be one.
Well said, Don. Well, Mr. Ambassador, you were mayor of the city of Knoxville for 4 terms, 88 through 2003. In 1988, you did something that many people would think, wow, can you really pass a penny for the parks? How did you pass a sales tax increase in this city?
Well, first of all, I was very open about it and recognized and explained to the public that we had a financial crisis in the city of Knoxville, which doesn't exist today. We were borrowing money to meet payroll. We had gone 8 years and not hired a single new police officer. We'd gone 11 years and not hired a single firefighter. What if the church you attend had no new members for 11 years? It would be a reduced congregation. We were paving 5 miles of city streets when there are 1,500 miles of city streets. Haley's Comet would have been back by the time we got through repaving city streets. So we had a serious crisis. That polling that we had done showed that if you had a plan and specific way of spending money, people would respond to it. We also, in the proposal, which I presented at my budget message in April, which didn't happen in this case, an 18-cent property tax reduction. So it was a combination of increase one, reduce the other. But the sales tax also is paid 65% by people that don't live in the city of Knoxville. And I think it's, so we were up front. I presented 2 budgets. One was based on a city sales tax passing. The other was based on it not passing. And what would the cuts be if, in fact, it didn't pass? And I think that's very important. So it's very different this time. There was not the advance notice. I was in the start of my first 4-year term. The current mayor is completing her second and final term and only has 2 years left for a final 5-year plan, which means she's only here for 2 years of the 5 years. And you almost begin to wonder why, if this is so needed, wasn't it proposed earlier in her tenure, where she could shepherd it through and, assuming it passed, be responsible for implementing it. That's not going to be the case. And City Council passing a resolution saying they're going to spend it a certain way, 5 of the 7 votes that voted for it will not be on council 6 months from today.
Hard to hold that accountability.
Exactly. The new council and the new mayor may have a totally different attitude. We don't know who they're going to be.
John North, you pulled some of the old coverage of this, and it is telling.
Yeah, so good old colleague Roger Harris for the New Sentinel covered it. He covered the city pretty intently back then in the late 80s. It passed really well, Victor, 63% of the vote, which is pretty darn good for something.
Got more votes than you did for mayor.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
Although I caught up later on.
Yeah.
You did.
But, past sales tax votes, I believe many had failed.
All 6 of them over 20 years had failed overwhelmingly. It wasn't even a close call.
But 2 really big points, I think, and you mentioned them early on, were police and fire. And whenever you talk about police and fire in the city of Knoxville, people are like, okay, yeah, let's make sure we take care of that. And the other one was, hey, we're going to shrink your property tax. That's not in play here.
Exactly. Property tax will stay the same. And the information the mayor gave that it wouldn't apply to groceries and to food is only true if it stays in the city, assuming it passes. If it passes and then the county joins in, the sales tax on food is restored. Furthermore, the $48 million that is gathered over 5 years is shrunk by $20 million that will be removed from it and go to county schools. Now, maybe that's a good idea or not, but it's no longer $48 million. And what is being advertised is not entirely accurate.
That is a big if, though. As you bring up, the county commission would have to make that move, and they haven't shown any sign of doing so.
I don't think they'll join on this referendum, but I think should it pass, at least that's what happened to us, it took them all of 4 weeks to have a special meeting of county commission to then have a countywide, and the new referendum did not include city voters, even though they're county residents. It was outside the city only, and because they didn't want money that would have gone to county schools to go to city projects.
We've got to take a quick break on Inside Tennessee. Back with more perspective, the questions from Eddie and Don for the former mayor and ambassador of Poland right after this. This is a look at the city website if you'd like to learn more about the sales tax increase proposal. And I want you to focus on the map of the counties there at the bottom right-hand portion of your screen. You can see the counties in orange as Ayanna pulls them up here. And those are counties with a higher sales tax than the county of Knox. Again, this would bump it to the maximum, so we would be equal to the surrounding counties. And again, Knoxville Mayor India Kincannon saying this is a good thing because that way we can absorb some of the money that a lot of those people from surrounding counties come and spend in the city. You can learn a lot more about why she says this is a good idea at the city website. Don?
So, Victor, you did a pretty good job of branding your tax proposal 37 years ago, and times are different. We now have social media, we have other mechanisms to get the message out. If you were advising Mayor Kincannon, what would you tell her she needs to do to get this thing across the line?
I'm not sure at this stage, with only 2 years left in office, there's much she can do. If she were going to do it, she should have done it in her first year.
We don't have a time machine, so what would you tell her now if you really want to get this across the line? The one thing you could do that might make it work?
I'm not sure what it'd be. You would reduce property taxes somewhat. You would have been more transparent in your budget message when you didn't even mention it, and said the city's in good financial shape, and then 6 weeks later you need a tax increase.
Those are what I call time machine issues. I was trying to see what, and you mentioned one, maybe a property tax decrease that goes along with this increase.
Well, but at this stage it's too late. Council can't really do it until next year. So I think a number of mistakes have been made. Can she recover from it? Perhaps. But it's interesting that of the 18 people running for city council, not one has endorsed it. 10 or 11 have come out against it. The others are non-committal. But the fact that no one running is willing to advocate it, other than the mayor herself, who's not running, speaks volumes as to its popularity.
So let's kind of look ahead. You know, obviously Mayor Kincannon has 2 years left, but there's some names out there that are floating that so far have voted for the tax increase that could potentially be running for mayor. You know, Gwen McKenzie, Andrew Roberto, and a few others.
Well, they voted to put it on the ballot.
Well, I'm sure they would tell you they voted to put it on the ballot. They did not vote for it.
Quite different.
And when I was mayor and they voted, I mean, virtually the whole council said, we're only voting to put it on the ballot.
And
we're not necessarily.
They're watching this at home right now going, wait a minute.
And you know as well as I do, if you're explaining in politics, you're losing. So the first flyer that goes out is going to say they voted for a tax increase and there's nothing they can do about it. So they voted on city council to allow it to go on to the referendum. But let's look ahead. You know, so if one of those were to be mayor, have any of them come out so far that you've heard or talked to that really have a good plan of how they might use that money in those 3 years of a 5-year plan that would be left?
They really haven't said. They've not indicated. They're for the people voting on it, but they haven't said how they will vote. If it passes, of course, the voters approved it, so it's really not an issue. If it fails, then the issue, my guess is they'll say, well, we've had a vote, we don't need another one in 2 years.
Let me ask you this, Victor. You are one of the most politically involved and keen people that I've met and known in this city. It's fun for you, and when I get to talk to you, it's fun for me as well. Would it make any difference? Are there any groups that could step forward or say, we want you to know we are for this and it will make a difference? Because I think maybe once upon a time the answer to that would have been yes, but I'm not so sure today.
Well, first of all, neighborhood groups. I mean, we had a concerted campaign to go to every neighborhood group in the city. We also went to groups that were receiving city funding, whether it was the Opera, the Symphony, or Blunt Mansion, or Mabry Hazen House, and point out, you know, there'll be more funds available. You need to contact your members and encourage them to support it. I don't see that happening. Now, there's 120 days left,
right.
So it could happen.
So you guys would have gone to like West Hills or whatever.
We went to every one of them.
Yeah.
There's no question, and it was successful. And we pointed out how West Hills would benefit, or Fountain City would benefit, or Inskip, or whichever neighborhood it was.
And in fairness, the mayor has broken down by district how this money would help each council district on the website if you would like to read it.
And you certainly should look at it. It's precise in some areas, and it's imprecise in others. For example, they referred to Dean Hill Recreation Center, and they said there'll be renovations. Well, that didn't tell you what is the renovation. Is it a new gym floor? Is it a parking lot? Is
more pickleball courts.
Or pickleball or whatever. They need to be more precise. Same things with Cumberland Estates and Fire Hall 15 and others.
I agree with you. I think there needs to be drilled down a lot more in what it needs and what we need to do and how we would spend the money if it passed. And I don't think that message is getting out very well at all, even with the website.
Eddie?
You know, so going back, you know, one of the things that I really wanted to focus on is if this does not pass, okay, so we've got 2 years left, we've got a city council. What do you see? We know the issues that the county's facing with some of the bond indebtedness they have. Is there anything on the city's horizon that could be, you know, at risk as you kind of look ahead, having been involved with, you knowing the budget and stuff as well as you do?
I think you won't expedite a lot of programs that some might want, such as affordable housing or sidewalks, that sort of thing. But if it fails, I don't see a new mayor 2 years after it just got beat coming back and saying, I can present it in a more attractive way than someone else, particularly if it's coming at the same time that the county is facing a major tax increase to pay off the bond indebtedness that they've inherited from former prior county mayors, and the principal has not been paid on.
We're going to take another quick break on Inside Tennessee. Back with more perspective from former Mayor Victor Ashe on this broadcast. We're glad to have you, Mayor. We'll be back right after this. We welcome you back on this July 4th holiday weekend. Hope you're staying cool and enjoyed your celebrations. Mayor, always good to have you and your perspective. I wanted to ask you straight up, are you going to vote in favor or against a sales tax increase in Knoxville?
I really haven't decided which way I'm going to vote. I think the administration needs to come forward with additional arguments that make sense. One thing that would weigh against it is the people pushing it only have 2 years left to implement a 5-year plan, which of course can't be done. And would it be better simply to wait for the new mayor, whoever that is, to look at the matter and decide what he or she wants to recommend?
I want to ask you this question, recognizing your experience for having been mayor for a long time, maybe the longest of anybody in Knoxville history?
One of the longest.
Yes.
One of the longest, at least?
The longest.
So, how do you, if you are the mayor who is pitching this, how do you overcome the perception held by many that you got lots of money, you don't need any more money, you got $477 million, you don't need any more of my money? How do you overcome that? Help us.
Well, first of all, in terms of how you spend money, it has to pass the smell test. Is this something that people think is really needed or not needed? And you know, you can look at some things that people can argue both ways, but I think you know, when you're pushing money to hire more police officers or firefighters or pave city streets, that's not a hard sell. If you're doing something more in the arts, while I favor the arts, that's a more difficult sell. And so you have to be strategic in what you pick out. You have to look at where the city precincts are, what will influence the larger precincts.
And the mayor has said affordable housing is the top issue she's dealing with, and this will spend millions of dollars to help build more affordable housing, and we'll also see sidewalks and parks. And in the larger context, most families in Knoxville, if their numbers are right, it will cost anywhere from $7 to $12 a month, depending on how much money you make per family.
Well, I think the issue of affordable housing is, are these 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms? Where are they going to be placed? I mean, it's fine generically to be for affordable housing, but there are a lot of questions that go into that. And if there are 1,000 new houses, what size are they? What part of town are they going in? Some people say, I'm all for it, but not in my neighborhood.
I think there are some pretty sufficient or in-depth studies out there right now where there are places suggested and the type of housing needed and suggested. So they may be a little farther down the pipe, so to speak, on those kinds of questions. But I think there does need to be, again, they need to get that message out there and really drill down. And like you've suggested, you're a former mayor and you're not sure where they're talking about putting them. So they need
I don't have a clue where they're putting them.
Right, and I suspect most of the public does not either unless they paid very specific attention to some of those studies.
Well, and what's affordable? Is that a $50,000?
Well, there are metrics that are set. Yeah, and I don't think they're for purchase generally.
Well, it's not on their website.
Okay, you're right. Again, messaging is an issue in this matter.
You know, so big picture, you know, we're coming up towards the end. Honestly, it's like having a master's class in just, you know, historical politics here. Looking over the next few months, what is the, bullet down to the 3 things that you think both the mayor and the administration need to do if they want to see this passed?
Well, I think by mid-September, when people start to focus on something that's 6 weeks away and early voting is at that point only 3 or 3.5 weeks away, they have to have some sound arguments and point out, where are these sidewalks going? What do you mean by affordable housing? There's no mention made of uniformed services. I think they've got to address police particularly. And you've got to look at paving city streets. Are they going to be divided equally between the 6 council districts, or is one area of town likely to do better than another area? I think there has to be a lot more precision than they have now. And I think they have to make it bipartisan if they can. I'm not sure they can, but at least make the attempt.
It was more than 3 decades ago that you were mayor. What made you most proud about your service to the city?
Oh, parks and greenways were the achievement that I was passionate about.
The expansion.
There were other things like the convention center, but you know, to quadruple the acreage of city parks, to go from 3 miles of greenways to over 40, and now it's
over 100.
Over 100. It set the stage for future mayors, Haslam or Harrow, and Kincannon want to build greenways because they're popular and they do it all over town. So those would stand out of things that I'm particularly proud of. Also, planting trees around town. Drive down Cherry Street or Nayland Drive. Those are trees we got planted.
Well, Mr. Mayor, we appreciate, as always, your perspective, and thanks for joining us on Inside Tennessee.
Great to be here.
We'll be back with our talk around right after this. Back on Inside Tennessee for our What's the Gossip segment. That's a nod to our old friend Dennis Francis. Miss him every day. John, we also have a little pin to put in this discussion about the sales tax increase that will be on the ballot. We have asked some of our viewers to weigh in.
Right. We like to do this. We hope you participate. We do have the ability to ask you to take part in the survey. We did that last week. Got about at least 285 responses, 78% no, 21% yes. We tried to filter it so that we were getting city voters. We trust you were honest with us. And a lot of people said, hey, and that's why I was asking former Mayor Ashe this, you got a lot of money, you're fine. So that perception is there whether you beat it or not. There is that perception out there, at least by these folks.
And that survey is still up if you'd like to take it on WBIR.com. All right, let's pivot to some other news this week, and that is the appointment by the president of a few more board members for TVA. Again, this was critical. It is critical because TVA does not have a quorum on the board and cannot do business. Don, what do you make of the nominations that include Jeff Haygood, who's a prominent attorney?
Well, I know Jeff very well. We were in law school together. Jeff's probably got his first basis in knowledge of water being a lifeguard at the faculty club swimming pool with me, so let's see if that serves him well. Jeff will do fine. Jeff is a political appointment. He doesn't have any specific background in energy, but neither did our colleague Susan Williams, and she did a great job on the board. These are political appointments. There are a few that might have troubles in committee when they get approval, and I know that Mr. Beeman has already, there's some swirling going about with him, and it'll be interesting to see those committees. I think Jeff will be fine, and I guess it'll be the energy committee that he'll have to go through. But it's time. TVA needs to operate better. It needs a full board.
And Eddie, do you think that the president nominating these people for the board will help TVA in the long run remain TVA? Because there's so much talk. At one point, the president said, let's just get rid of it. Let's break it up.
So the one that was most interesting when I saw it was the gentleman who was nominated from Memphis Light and Gas. Because there is a long-running argument between Memphis Light and Gas and TVA. At one point, they were actually looking to split out of the TVA network. So I'm interested to see how his confirmation hearing goes. That was the one that kind of struck me as the most unique in the slate. Obviously, you know, knowing Lee Beeman.
Yeah, and some inside baseball. Jeff Haygood, maybe his very best friend in the world is Congressman Chuck Fleischman. And Chuck has certainly done a lot with Oak Ridge and energy, and I think that'll be an interesting collaboration with Jeff on the TVA board, assuming he gets confirmed, and Congressman Fleischman.
Before we leave, 30 seconds, what's the gossip? The Diddy trial captured a lot of attention. What's your take on it, Don?
Government overreach using the RICO statute, long history of the federal government overusing, misusing RICO and trying to get too much, too big of a bite of the apple. They did convict him on Mann Act, what we call Mann Act prostitution charges. I think he'll do several years. He'll be sentenced to that. That's why you saw earlier in the week his bail denied, even though he won on the big counts. He is going to serve time, and of course there's still probably remaining civil litigation. He's settled some of it, but it's a mess.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. We appreciate you watching Inside Tennessee. Hope to see you right back here next week on Sunday morning. And until then, enjoy your week.